Ah, the good old critique. Now, who doesn't love being told that the work they slaved over for hours is a total piece of shit? All jokes aside, I remember when I went to college for industrial design, the critique was the most nerve-wracking part. So my goal with this video is to take a look at each image and mention what I think the designer or artist did well and what I think they need to work on to improve the quality of the submitted image. Now, understand a few things here. It takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable and to be willing to have your image that you worked hard on critiqued online in a public fashion. So first of all, any feedback or criticism I have, I mean for it to be constructive and to help you move along and develop as an artist. So please don't take any of this feedback personal or negatively. And second of all, if you enjoy this video and you think that it's worth doing some more of these, drop some comments down below. Maybe this will become a regular segment, we'll see. Before we begin, I want to plug the KeyShot Rendering Roadmap. It's a document that summarizes the steps that I take to push my renderings a little bit further each time. Download it for free at willgibbons.com/roadmap or click the link below. I mean, it's free, so you might as well. So I want to mention that I got more than 20 submissions, and I realized that even if I spent 3 or 4 minutes on each image, we'd be here for like hours. So this is going to be super hard. I had to just pick 10 images, and I'm going to try to move through this feedback as quickly as I can while still being useful and offering some input. So let's see how it goes. Also, the name of the person who submitted this will be on screen so I don't mispronounce anything. So our first submission is a Swiss Army knife, which is cool. Nice subject. Now, I like the composition overall. I like this kind of angle we have going on here. I think that overall the lighting on it is fine. They did a good job controlling their highlights. It doesn't blow out too much. Sometimes rendering metals can be tough. Looks like they used a really soft HDRI to get this nice highlight sort of reflection transition. It's good. Overall, it's good. I think that the texture, I like that they went for a brush texture here, but I also think it might be a little overly large, like it's too noticeable. So maybe dial that back a little bit. And I really love the highlights that are captured on this little corkscrew. It's just such a nice piece. I almost would like to see more attention on this corkscrew. Like maybe the camera could be a little lower and closer to it. One other little weird thing I noticed is this logo kind of just disappears, the Swiss Army logo. I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be like polished chrome, like they do that in everything. That's like their signature. So whenever dealing with a recognizable brand or logo, don't mistreat the way they treat that logo. So I think you know, that's an easy thing to overlook, but I think that this thing needs to be popping off the page a little bit. Otherwise, if we zoom out, I have no idea what knife this is. We need this little like silver, Swiss Army iconic logo going on here. The last major thing I want to point out about this image that I could see for improvement is the background. So I understand you probably were trying to come up with like a rugged wood background, but I don't think it's doing you any favors here. So when we zoom out, there's so much detail and texture going on in this wooden surface that it actually competes with the Swiss Army knife. So I would love to see the same image, but on a almost like a more neutral background, maybe just a surface that's like some cool like rubberized, maybe a soft touch, sort of a rough surface, maybe something with a very subtle texture on it, or like maybe even some like machined lines or something. I think when I think of Swiss Army, I think of like precision engineered, like clean lines, like really nice tooling and everything. So maybe you have like just this solid kind of gray, dark gray background with some like really thin, like nice geometric, like etched lines or some like little dots or something. I don't know. But I think that this background just needs to basically fade away from our eye and let your knife really jump off the page. I think that would really do a lot. And then the last thing I would do, if you do that, if you darken up the background, go with something a little more simple, is maybe hit this knife, a little bit highlight on here so this guy doesn't disappear. But other than that, you know, it's a nice image, and I think that a little tweaking could go a long way and really make this go from being a decent rendering to a good rendering. So with that, moving on. Okay, rendering number 2. So this one has, this is nice. So it looks like we got a product here, and we can kind of understand how it works. It's got this like tape, this kind of thing that you peel off this sticky back stuff, and then you stick it onto something like your stylus. And what I like about this is we've got context. So you see the product before it's applied, you see the product on an object, and then you also see what type of environment it would be used in. It looks like we've got a little bit of a laptop or tablet with like a CAD software. Obviously this stylus would be used in this context. So we have context, we understand the product and how it's used. This image is telling a story, and that's what I like. I think it's good for that. Now, how would I improve this image? Now, I think it's a little bit warm and it's a little bit dark and low contrast for my liking. So when I zoom out, yes, the stylus catches my eye, but also the tablet and the Apple mouse really carry a lot of visual weight in this image. So I think we want to put our focus on your product, which is not currently the focal point in my opinion. So maybe we could bring in, so you see how we have this nice like warm sunset light splashing on the background. Could we maybe bring that in either coming this way, or could we bring it in going this way to kind of, you know, again, direct our eye to what we should be focusing on and away from these supplemental areas here. I think it's good that you show this in an environment. There's nice reflections on our mouse and everything. It looks good. The one thing though that I will also say is really distracting is this leather texture. Unfortunately, it's either too big, like you just need to scale that guy down, or maybe it's just not a high quality texture. Maybe you need a higher res texture, one with more subtle grain, because this just looks too rough. It's just a little too distracting. You could also try like a felt. That could look really nice too. Something a little, like I feel like a felt's a little bit more modern, little bit more trendy than like leather right now, but like, you know, that's kind of personal preference there. Overall, it's a good image. I like the image. I think just a couple tweaks I would make, and maybe play with something just a little bit of like a cooler tone too, and maybe make it feel a little fresher. But that's more of an opinion type thing, you know. Overall, I like it. Hopefully that's useful. Time to go to the next image. So this is a cool image because this person is obviously really comfortable with negative space. We have a product that's actually kind of small in the frame, and we have a lot of negative space all around it where there's just a wall and light, and it works because the product is black and it contrasts greatly with the pink background, and it looks good. I really like it. I also like how you're using these walls to draw our eyes in toward the product. So fantastic composition. What would I do to improve this thing? It's hard because again, this is really just a personal preference item for me. One thing that my eye doesn't love is the wall and the floor where they meet. This just gets really confusing. And it, you know, again, if you like this and that was your intention, not a problem, but I think I would like a little better distinction between the floor and the wall. And the way you've introduced some shadows is great, but I think you could push them so the values of these shadows are just a little darker, and this gradient from the background from there to there is a little bit more high contrast. So this either brighter or this darker or both. And the last thing I might recommend is, you know, the lamp, you know, so our eye comes in toward the lamp and then it points down. But I almost want to see the lamp, because it is a lamp, I almost want to see a beam of light coming from it. And if that's the case, what you could do, instead of having the primary light source be from behind this wall, you could have the primary source of light coming behind this wall, kind of backlighting our lamp, and then have the lamp itself illuminating this side of the frame. I think that could be fun. And then you could play with a little warm, cool tone split. But again, personal preference item there. Love this shot. Really not a lot to nitpick, but I think if I was to push this background a little bit, those are areas I would consider. Moving on to the next shot. Holy moly, this is hot. The colors here, I mean, this kind of, here, let's switch up our color here. This milky kind of green, oh my gosh. That is a fantastic color and glass material, man. Also, this is a really sharp image. I don't know if you did a little bit of post work in Photoshop sharpening this up, but man, it just, you know, and I'm not sure if it looks like there may be some depth of field, maybe a bit. So to still have such a tack sharp image with a little depth of field is great. And I love how you've got some wavy, so see this little waviness here? We got these, it just really works. It just really works. And all these little glistening little highlights are great. So, okay, enough. I love this image, obviously. What would I do to improve it? This is hard. This is so hard because I don't want to say it's perfect because I don't know. I feel like perfect is a little much. Is any image perfect? I don't know. Would I change anything about this image? No, I don't think so. I think this is a lovely image. The only thing, if I have to say something here, because this is a critique, feedback, whatever, maybe we could introduce a shadow from something else. Could we have maybe some shadow coming in here and maybe something in the background to break up this white void? I don't know, but honestly, I love this so much as it is. I don't think I have any sort of criticisms as of now. Let's move on to the next image. We have a product that goes on somebody's back. So Exo Bak. And it looks like this is a kind of almost like a backpack, but it's more like a back brace here. First impressions to me here are my biggest concern with this as a rendering is a rendering needs to communicate something. We should understand what the product is. We should be able to see it. It should tell some sort of story about function. What I think this person's doing well is they are showing their product in context being used. This is a person lifting a heavy box, and they've got this Exo Bak product on to keep their back either strong or protected, maybe even help them lift more, I don't know. But it's a contextual rendering with a person, and that's hard to do in CGI typically. Like if you model in a CAD software, adding a human to your renderings is always tough. So props to this person for doing that. That's what I like about it. Now, what do I think could improve? I think that their lighting is not doing them any help because it's very hard for me to see the outlines of this product. It really, I don't even know where this ends here. It really blends in with the person in the rendering, I guess. I don't know if this ends there or not. So it's very confusing. And I think that that's an easy fix. Just change the color of the black on the person, or better yet, change the product or something. Or not, okay, maybe don't change the product. Maybe the product is fixed. Change the color on the person or change your light source. Have a strong light source coming in here on the person. This whole side of this box does not need to be as lit as it is. This whole side of this box does not need to be lit. This side of their arm doesn't need to be lit. What we need to do is see the product first and foremost. And right now, it unfortunately just disappears. As soon as I zoom out, I see Exo Bak, and it almost looks like a little camelback, like a water thing. But I really am just struggling to see the rest of this, okay? So that's one big thing. The other thing I want to point out is it looks like some depth of field was attempted in here. I don't know if this was added in post or if this was rendered in the shot, but to me, the product is blurry. Like this looks blurry down here, but this does not. I would kill the depth of field or at least dial it way back just so we can see this product. It's okay, you know, that sounds harsh. Like I said, props to this person for putting it on a human. That's hard to do. But I think that they're really not showing off their product the way they should. You know, if you put the time in to design this, we got to see it. We got to understand what is this material? I want to see this little spine-like thing. This is cool. I want to see a macro shot. What are these, you know, is there some sort of cool neoprene or some sort of like woven texture? I don't know. Show me what's going on in this image. I would love to see maybe some close-ups or something. So let's take a look at our next image. So we have this looks like a bottle of gin. Dry gin. Okay, so we've got an alcohol container. NASA, obviously kind of a play on NASA. It's kind of a fictional company type thing. We've got this rocket ship-like bottle. I love the lighting. They let the rocks go real dark in here. We're really seeing all the detail in these rocks here, and yet our product still has a nice core reflection here. So bravo on the lighting. Well done there. Lovely shot. Now, what would I improve? So this is a little less to do with the rendering, but I'm pretty sure the person who made this rendering made this product, this bottle. And if you look closely, it kind of wobbles. Sorry, my hand's not real straight. It kind of dips in here, and that weird continuity, I don't know, it's kind of distracting. Like to me, if this is like, you know, manufactured kind of sci-fi or something, like this should be a really straight angle or line, I feel like. Now, if this is supposed to be a soft plastic, something you could like squeeze with your hand, then it makes sense that it's a little wobbly here. So maybe I'm reading it wrong, but to me, the surfacing on this it is a little distracting. I also think the label is getting stretched. It looks like it's kind of getting stretched this direction. And I don't know, I feel like the placement of these could just be a little bit better placed and straightened out a little bit. I don't know if they're just not wrapping as well as we would hope. That's super nitpicky. What about the rendering itself though? If this is kind of this like Martian sort of outer space concept, this almost looks like a red Mars rock. So if that's kind of this theme that we've got going on, as far as I know, Mars has a yellowish, greenish atmosphere. It's very different than Earth. You could ham it up a little bit and either tint your light that you have coming in here more greenish to kind of get that Martian atmosphere, or you could even exaggerate it further, and instead of having a bluish kind of a backdrop, gray blue, you could go with the greenish yellowish hue, and that really might help just give it this kind of otherworldly, eerie feel, which I think could be a lot of fun. Lastly, I think your framing is good. I think the aspect ratio is good. I think the framing is a little wider than you need it to be. Oopsies. So I think even something like this, like or if you want it to not be, you know, center composition, whatever. I feel like you could play with the framing just a little bit more, bring us closer to the product, and just cut back on this negative space. It's a little bit much for me, because I think it takes away from the presence of your product. Otherwise, nice image, nice tonal range, nice contrast, nice graphical legibility. I really like that. All right, our next image is an interior with a yellow chair. What do we say about this? This is a nice image. It's really nice. You've got these kudos on these like nice straight architectural lines going on. You know, using your shift lens, we've got things really squared off and geometric. It feels like a nice architectural interior. And then we've got our yellow accent chair, and the chair is lovely. It's a nice contrast. Now, this is tough. I really struggle with interiors, so I don't know totally what the right answer is to improve this. I love this shot. I think you've done a great job with it. It looks very professional. It looks like something I'd see in a CB2 catalog, which is great. That's a good compliment. Nice job on the carpet too. Those can be tough. But the question, what could we do to potentially improve this? So what about colors? I'm a little colorblind, so sorry if I'm missing this, but you might have some blue in here, but with this being yellow, could we play with some complementary values? Could we bring in some more blues here? Could we tone map us just a little bit? I don't know. What about the color of this vase? I think that's a missed opportunity. We've got the walls, which are all the same beige. We've got the floors, we got the carpet, all kind of the same hues. Could we, the green's a nice pop, but it doesn't distract too much from the chair. Could we introduce a different color here? What about more of an evening shot where, what if we introduced some pendant lighting here? Nice little pendant lighting, I don't know. Could that work? Maybe. Could you introduce a piece of, artwork on the wall that I think compositionally something's missing here. I like the artwork idea. I think maybe that could be really nice. And then you could also play with your lighting, of course. Could we bring in, some big harsh shadow? What about that? What if you, graphically speaking, what if you just this beam of light where this whole area is really dark and this whole area is really dark? or vice versa. Maybe this whole strip down the middle is really dark. I don't know. I know it's maybe not as realistic, but I think this is a lovely shot that shows off a product. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's a great shot. But I think to improve the rendering, I would look at areas to introduce drama, or maybe just a little bit of shadow play on the wall here. Something else, because I think compositionally, it's not wrong, but I almost want something else to be here on the wall. I don't know. Sorry, that's about the best I got. This is a lovely image, by the way. Okay, so we have a bottle of cologne for this next one, or perfume or something. Technically speaking, this is well done. If this person modeled all this, we've got some gold, we've got this kind of textured, I know it's like a leather print, but it reads as like a plastic. Usually you would not, it would be like a fake plasticky type of material here. And then this bottle, which is fairly complex, lots of refractions and stuff going on here. Very cool. I'm almost certain they've got caustics in here, almost certain, but I don't see the telltale like caustic splotchiness that sometimes happens in KeyShot, so maybe I'm not entirely sure there. If they did not render with caustics, an opportunity to spice this up would be to make sure caustics are on, and while it takes a long time to render, you could get some really lovely, interesting shapes from all the facets in this glass. I think that could be a cool way to bring some life into this. Another thing, I think this aspect ratio is not doing you any favors. I think I would, maybe that's a little too close. I would crop in a bit more, maybe something kind of like this. I don't think we need all this stuff out here. I also want to see your bottle rotated a little bit. I would love to see the label kind of, not perfectly facing the camera, but you know, just a little bit. I think right now, sorry, I'm getting a little messy here. I think right now my eye is drawn to this face right here, and there's nothing there. I think your label needs to be kind of right in here. So just rotate it maybe just a little bit. And then the other thing is we've got lots of warm yellows and golds in here. I think outside of it, we could do with some stronger blues, which you've done. You've got blues in here, but I think your background is, you could just amp it up. I mean, this shadow here is cool, but like, what if it was like, what if it was like, you know, way darker there. And then this was a lot brighter, almost pure white. What if you just had more contrast in this shot? So the background red is like graphic, you know, dark and white. I think that could do a lot for your image. And the other thing I want to point out is I think this ground texture is just too low res. I don't know if you simply scaled it up too big or if it's a low res texture, and if you scale it down, it's going to repeat and you don't want that. If that's the case, sometimes you just got to go buy, you know, spend the money on a real like high res texture, or go take photos of your own. Even your phone will probably take high enough resolution photos to turn into texture. So I think your texture is just too soft. I think this needs, you know, to be higher resolution, some crunchier, smaller details. And I would also, like I said, boost the contrast. I would love to see some like really bright here, really, really dark here, and keep this dark blue. So the way you can do that, if you lit this with an HDRI, is make sure that the pin that's creating this light here is nice and bright, and then make sure the rest of the HDRI that's causing this dark area is almost pure black, just like a dark blue, and that should help you quite a bit. Lastly, if you want some bright caustics down here, set like use like a, what's that called, the spotlight or something like that to really blow some light at that. I think that would be cool too. All right, let's hit the next image. We're almost done here. Okay, so this is a shot where this person designed this lamp. I read a little bit about each of these renderings first. So they've got this glass part, they've got a light bulb in here, they've got a concrete base. Now, this rendering, there's a lot to improve here, but I don't mean that in a rude way. I like that, you know, your lamp looks good, it looks like your materials are right, you got your glass, you got your light bulb, you got your concrete base, you even modeled the cable, the cord. I love those details, that's awesome. Now, I think my biggest thing for you here, and this is a lesson that applies to everybody, what you've done is so if we zoom out, your lamp disappears. It's almost like it's the last thing I notice, because when you zoom out, I'm going to show you, I know this is small, this is really hard to see on screen, but I'm going to make a point here. My eye is first drawn to this part. Let's switch our colors. My eye is first seeing this part because it's so bright. Then my eye sees this part because it's really dark. Then my eye sees this because it's just this weird square. And then I see this part. And the last thing I notice is your lamp, right? So for me, every image has a hierarchy of read, and you want your product to be the thing that we see most readily. And the way you're going to do that is by using contrast. So this wheel is so bright, it's got so much contrast compared to the rest, and it's a big geometric form. So that has to go. Like, that's not working. This is dark, and while the chair is a lovely chair, it's the darkest thing on this image against a beige wall. Of course we're going to see it next. So I would go with a chair that almost matches the same color as the wall. This couch is just, sorry, this isn't your fault, but this couch is just hideous. It's just like, this texture is too big. You know, it looks like it's not reading properly, and it looks kind of like an 80s kind of style couch. It's just not, I don't know. I don't think it's doing you any service here. And then this is a lovely prop, but again, because it's got some, you know, this contrast against this beige wall, it's lovely, but it's a little distracting from your product here. So my suggestion would be start by reframing this. What if you cropped in something like this? Like, I don't think we need anything outside of that box I just drew. And then I think this cart has to go. This is a very stylized cart. It's a very polarizing cart. If you don't like this form, you immediately don't like this image, even though this image is all about your lamp, which I really like. I like your lamp design. I do not like what it's sitting on, and that's not your fault. So I think that when you have a product to put on display, you have to consider, don't introduce anything that's going to be too distracting from your object or compete for attention. And second, try to get everything in the background, all these props, make them almost the same color or a very similar analogous color so they don't compete, and then let your product have the highest contrast. I think we've got some interesting light on the wall coming in here, although it's blowing out, it's getting too hot. Use the, try the photographic image styles in KeyShot to help prevent this weird white blown out area. And then could we raise our light source so your light is coming across the image in a cool kind of interesting dramatic way on this as well? If we did that, and if we darken the room, then your lamp has a chance to create a nice soft glow on the back wall, and that would create some lovely contrast and let us see your product as it should be. So to me, don't get discouraged. I know I picked this apart, but to me, there is so much potential to improve this. I think you should feel inspired to take a second crack at it, and I'd love to see what this looks like after another round. So hopefully that helps out there. Okay, we have one more image to go. So we have a light. It's a light. It's got this big heat sink on the back, a bunch of LEDs, and then this fixture that allows you to rotate this light. So this is difficult to do. First of all, on a pure white background, there's no context. Second of all, the product itself is dark. It's almost all black and dark gray against white, which means it can be really easy to just see a silhouette on this page. Now, thankfully, when I zoom out, it actually still reads surprisingly well because this person made sure it didn't get too dark inside here. I like this because even though we don't see any context, I can see there's these kind of like wire, spring-loaded wire clips where like obviously this goes into some sort of like sheetrock or like a ceiling fixture. And this thing rotates, like because they put this off axis and we see these rings, this thing obviously rotates, and I'm able to see that. So like this image is still telling me the functionality of this light. It's an in-ceiling lighting fixture that can rotate, and there's almost no color on it whatsoever, and yet it still reads pretty well. What could we do to improve it? I think the biggest missed opportunity here is that this black surface back here is blending into this one, and it's blending into this one, which blends into this one. Now, this is hard. This is difficult. I'm not trying to say just do this and it gets easy. What I will say is I would encourage this person to try to use either a physical light or some very small HDRI lights to see if they couldn't pop out these surfaces so we could see that surface and that surface and that surface and that surface are not all the same. I think, you have to paint with light. They've done a very, very good job so far, but I think this just needs to catch some more highlight. I think this needs to catch some more highlight, and then in here a little bit too. That's very, very nitpicky, but this is a very challenging subject because it's just a dark, black painted object with some metal on a white background. So also, not to mention, they did a good job managing these chrome pieces against a white backdrop. I think really the opportunity lies in getting these surfaces to read just a little bit better and to tell them apart, but also, could we get some slight textures, maybe some slight brushing on this, just a little bit, and then could you get some little slight texture going on in these in this metal powder coated finish. I think just it needs some grain. I know powder coating is pretty smooth generally, but this looks plasticky. I think you need something to it to have some tooth, some texture. And because you're gonna see this, you're gonna be zoomed way out of this product, in order for those textures to read and help, if we look at it this big, they're basically gonna disappear. So what you're looking to do is add just a little bit of bump texture with a pretty significant bump height, so that when you shine your light on this product, it catches some little highlights, little glints of highlight on that bump texture, so you can see it's not a perfectly smooth plastic. That's going to be my top recommendation for this. Otherwise, this is a deceptively tough image to pull off, and you've done a fantastic job. So there you guys have it. 10 of your renderings critiqued, done, dusted. Hopefully you learned something from this feedback. I enjoyed it, but man, I gotta say, it's tough keeping the feedback down to just a few minutes per image. I would love to spend a half hour on each image if I really could, because the more time you spend thinking about it, the more opportunities you see. And that's what I'm hoping to teach you to do, is to look at your own images and then push yourself. Think of ways you could maybe give it a little more love or experiment a little bit more each time. This is how you grow as an artist. If your image didn't make the cut this time, I'm sorry, it's just a time thing. I've got another 10 images that were already submitted. So if you guys want to see those, comment down below. Maybe I can make this a regular series, but yeah, that's it. Thank you to those who submitted your images. Good on you. Hopefully you learned something. And until next time, happy rendering.